But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing. Not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win. We choose to go to the moon.
All right, everyone, welcome to the 67th episode of the World Blockchain Roundtable. Our hosts for today are Distant from Den.Social.
Hey, y'all.
Lisa Mighty Davis, Litecoin Lisa.
Good morning.
And Gregorius Maximus of Rivet. Greg is here today. And I'm your master of ceremonies for today, Joe, founder and architect of Dragon Chain and all related stuff. A quick update on the World Blockchain Roundtable Layer Ownership Tokens distribution from last week's episode. Each host who was here last week will receive 133 lot. Each topic contributor will receive 41 lot. I think we got through a lot of questions, right? Last week's theme was on the implications of blockchain to recorded history. Brilliant talk. Love that topic. Nominated by Jacob Wayne, who will receive 41 lot. These ownership tokens come with perpetual passive income, free edits inside the layer and the DAO, and governance votes, of course. And I think also, the ability to create a governance vote, you need a lot. I'm pretty sure that's right. Totally details. Theme for this week is blockchain fundamentals, as nominated by yours truly, as that's usually not spoken about in the world these days, even in on blockchain YouTube shows. But before we get to that, we will do current events, right? So what's the first current event we should cover that's important?
There's a lot going on. We were talking a little bit about the merge pre-show, so we could talk about that.
Yes.
We were talking a little bit about the UN recognizing the ongoing issue with
The Uyghur Muslims in
China.
China.
The Uyghur Muslims in China, in that region.
Wow,
and you know what I just read that I hadn't seen until just now, but this is from third party, not a direct source, but apparently Pope Francis has he instructed the Vatican entities to move all the funds to the Vatican Bank by the end of September, and quote, said that mankind is experiencing the outbreak of World War III during an audience at the Vatican. So I don't know about what's going on there, but they seem like to know that something's up as well.
The clown world is getting like extra clown. Like the clowns are putting on clown makeup.
So where do y'all want to start? Because those are some doozies.
I don't know. It's like, do you think the Vatican's going to start taking cryptocurrency donations at the pulpit soon? Like, do you think?
I know it just seems like they're turtling up and telling the community, "Hey, brace yourselves."
Right? No, I mean,
that kind of thing.
If they're pulling funds back,
maybe we should make a Christianity
that's
DAO.
probably direct.
Maybe
goal,
the whole schism can be repaired, and that Christianity could come together if they didn't have to deal with popes and deacons and other people up in front leading them.
Decentralized faith. That's
Yeah,
actually
I
kind
know.
of funny.
You know,
There are a lot of holy wars going on in this space. It's almost like we're all good holy warriors to a certain extent.
Everything's a religion these days. Bitcoin itself is a religion. Ethereum is definitely a religion.
Oh, right.
Crypto
money kind of.
What the Bored Apes? That's a religion now.
The world's turning to software developers, right? Like there are 15 different flavors of big Endian debate that can go on now, right?
Do we need a religious entity
Yes.
to protect software developers, like the Tornado Caches of the world and stuff like that? Do we need religious exemptions for that to be able to be allowed now?
I think we need religious exemptions for everything, right? Like, why is the question about giving this group a special privilege always resolved by closing off the special privilege rather than granting it to everyone. Like we need to stop lowering the status quo as a way to fix problems when we see issues with privilege.
There need to be fewer things that special things need privilege from, is essentially it. It's like we don't need a law and give everyone special privilege around it. There just doesn't need to be that law.
Heavily defended special privileges are like the really great entrepreneurial ideas in capitalism, right? If there is political free markets, in political free markets, any idea that started as a privilege should be granted to everybody if there's a fight over it.
Yeah.
Well, Bank of America disagrees.
Yeah.
Bank of America is only giving no down payment loans to Black and Hispanic families right now, which I'm pretty sure is discrimination and illegal.
There's a lot of discrimination right now against people who are transracial in this world. And I feel like one could wage a very effective satirical campaign that would actually not be distinguishable between satire and reality at this point. We could take it to the Supreme Court, get transracial rights, and then the whole thing eats itself.
Yeah, that's where it's headed anyway. So
stuff like that pops up sometimes. It's interesting, like, year to year to see what the what's the new thing that people care about. I guess I say people, just like generally what's been like the whole NPC thing. We're like, now the issue is this. Now the issue is that.
We need to actually have some of these things be the focus. Like, why aren't elected leaders going, I'm going to look into why people think this is happening, and we're not going to necessarily have a solution, but we're going to try to find the answer. Like, congressional research is something that they underdo.
Yeah, like what the inverse of that? Why people think that something is not happening? What took the UN so long to come around to acknowledging that there was a genocidal problem happening with a group of people in the Asian region?
Well, diplomacy doesn't include anything that ends with you're a complete fucking liar. That doesn't start a war, right? Like, diplomacy has to be done with sort of polite detente. You go, okay, let's agree to disagree. We'll go our separate ways. Or you go to war over it. We typically choose go our separate ways, but mostly we don't pull that card.
Stop harvesting organs from people without their permission.
Right.
Yeah, things like that.
Female genital mutilation happens in countries that we talk to and do business with, right? Like,
well, bureaucracy's known to be inefficient, but oddly enough, it is most inefficient when something ethical or when there are real issues. It tends to be really inefficient when it doesn't need to be, right? When it's easy. But when there's an issue like that, that's one of those things that historically is damning. The fact that how many people died, how much massive injustice goes through, and then therefore, what is that organization in place for if it doesn't do that very thing, right?
You think that's part of was there a delayed reaction, and that was part of it because everybody was looking at everybody else to be like, well, what are they saying? Well, what are they saying?
No.
What should I say based on what they're?
This is
I would say
undecipherable, right?
Mostly
Like, this is why we need the artifice of the free market of anything, right? The invisible hand is the perception of collective human activity when each individual chooses what they do separately,
which requires transparency too, because that's the thing. I think
there
might be we're afraid to do anything or anything else, but more often than not in those situations, in those networks where there is power, it gravitates the people who are willing, able, and wanting to do evil, and they therefore are willing to accept money or favors to essentially slow it down for whoever is doing.
Joe, I think it's worse than that. I think it's worse than that. I think what we've got right now is a system that protected those people's egos and reputations, that programmatized the graft in it. Like, it's a system. They don't actually have to collude because the system colluded a long time ago to build a system that colluded for them without having to get their
main point is it's evil, and most of the people there are only there because they're willing to see evil and live with it for the paycheck.
Exactly. It's like the SEC going after Den or video platform. Like it's fucking, it doesn't make any sense. But
you think there's strategy there where, you know, I first was reading about.
That scares me.
No, you don't think so? I was first reading about what was going on, what China was doing with the Uyghur population, with the concentration camps and the work camps and the horrid abuses and the murder and all of that. I read about that before COVID was a thing, before COVID-19, and then kept reading about it. Like whenever China locked down, apparently, a lot of the factories were maintained with the Uyghur population, even though everybody was dying, because it was such a rapid, explosive infection that was, maybe the death rate was low percentage wise, but the number of people being infected was so high that people were dying, and that was who they picked to say, you know what, they can die, they can just keep, because we got to keep pumping out products, we got to keep producing, that's what we're based on. And I guess my question is, was there a strategy there to not say anything while it was still helping the global marketplace? And then now that we're going to go to war with China anyway, now we can say something about it. So now, now that's going to collapse anyway. So now we can say something.
Totally disabuse ourselves of thinking about it in terms of who is this they that's thinking of it. When we say they, what we're doing is eliding over this huge, complex, massive individual choices. And, we've got to start being able to think in terms of structurally disabling the choices we don't want them to be able to make. Like that's the whole point of constitutional government. We don't have government about limiting the government anymore. It needs to return to that.
Right on.
Yeah, I do think there is a they.
Absolutely.
And now it is not necessarily a purely arranged something in single entity you can point to, but there's a lot of collusion with a lot of those.
Right. No, I mean there's definitely a collection of bastards at the top that all have sort of a common motive, but
I had something.
They don't have a plan. They're not that smart.
I was going to post. This is not like a major current event or anything, but there was an amazing thread on a 4chan poll. And a lot of inappropriate content, obviously, it always does, but it was very thought-provoking, and it was about reality and legalisms. And I was going to post it anonymously into, red pills or politics or something, but maybe I will. I at least saved a bunch of it because there were some really neat ideas in it. But anyway, what else we could talk about? What were the other things? The Ether, the Ethereum.
Yeah, so the merge, just 2 more weeks, right?
Yeah, and actually,
it's a countdown.
Talk about it. If you guys should go check out Alon Goran's I talked about World Blockchain Roundtable there, so I promised him I'd vice versa. But Blockchain and Booze, it takes place Wednesday night, so you can watch it and maybe watch me get drunk with Alon from time to time.
That is awesome.
Yeah, that's great. And then you can watch this in the morning.
We should get him to come on here and propose an episode that he would be on where we would all get drunk.
Yeah. Oh, I actually think that would be pretty cool.
Crossover, yeah, or something different, right? It would all have to be. Yeah. Anyway, all right.
So, Lisa called it a countdown, so it's for sure. Like it's a thing that's going to happen.
So they're going off of something called total difficulty, and basically what's going to happen is, once that total difficulty level is reached, which is a calculation that gets made each block, that causes the event to occur, right? So it hits there. Right now that's predicted to happen because that total difficulty increases accumulatively over time, where they're currently predicting the date. So, but if, like, for instance, a bunch of miners dumped hashing power onto the network, they could change it pretty dramatically, or if a bunch stopped, right? Like, so there's still a lot of uncertainty around the date, but it's coming.
Will it be so all tokens issued after that, are they structurally similar? I mean, is all of the ether mined after that? Because it's going to fork out. Because here's the thing: all of the
it's actually pretty brilliant what they did,
but all the ether in existence is going to now be approachable on this new network, or it's the same network, but it's
so here's what happens. I figured this out last night, by the way, like 5 minutes before I went on to World Blockchain, or to I'm calling them World Blockchain Roundtable.
The other one
before I went on Blockchain and Booze, right? So what happened is they set it up so that total difficulty is the trigger, and that also is the trigger for the logic bomb or the difficulty bomb that shuts down the proof of work chain for good, unless you somehow manage to get us to Kardashev level 3 before the merge happens. There will never be another proof of work block of Ethereum on network 1 ever again.
So they picked the difficulty as a trigger instead of a block height?
The difficulty sort of makes it so that there can't be a forked chain that's also running network 1. It prevents duplicate transactions. Or mirroring, I guess.
Really neat idea.
Chains, right?
So I heard just the opposite on that other video that I sent you guys the other day.
There's a lot of confusion around it, I think. But, I do think that there's some sense to it after you get into the weeds really well with like some decent people to bounce what's wrong with your thinking off of.
Okay.
Like I made a bunch of mistakes in my thinking of it and had them corrected for me by some smart people last night. So.
Was that video implying that the difficulty bomb was was going to make it to where proof of stake didn't take hold and proof of work continued?
No, the difficulty bomb is what's going to make it so there's no proof of work on network 1.
Yeah, it's just to make it so that the proof of stake is the only way to make a block, and they won't be able to do an Ethereum Classic continuance, right?
Exactly.
So,
because from now on, the version of the network that runs on network ID 1 includes a difficulty bomb on anything proof of work.
So anyone who is a proof of work advocate, but is religiously tuned with Ethereum, would theoretically have to move back to Ethereum Classic, right?
Or they could go to one of those.
Right? You're explaining what the merge is,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay, so I was told that there is a guy, and I'm assuming it's a dude, but a person who is an old school Ethereum Classic person that laid another bomb before that happens, or as that happens, that there will then be a additional proof of work.
Yeah, this is
there are definitely people talking about forking Ethereum
to make a fork.
They would probably just say fork it at the block, the trigger block.
Because you could fork it
in like Ethereum POW
equals 1.
Yeah, right. I have seen that.
This is people who don't want to change the network ID so that they can keep claiming that they're the original Ethereum.
So is that Ethereum Classic-ish? So
no, because Ethereum Classic just took their losses like a bunch of people who gracefully could lose, and changed their network ID to 61 and kept running.
Yeah. But they can't really with a difficulty bomb. You can't.
So funny.
Isn't that kind of like taking votes away from proof of work? Like through software, did we remove the ability of proof of work miners to have it used to be one CPU, one vote. Now it's one, I guess, one ASIC rig, one vote.
Yeah, exactly.
There's an
analogy you can
understand directly between a staker and a miner.
For security reasons
mathematical.
And economic reasons, it's understandable why they're doing this. I would prefer to see just open and free competition. That if people decide to use the proof of work, they use it. They use a proof of stake, they use it.
Right.
And it's very obvious
for my money
that Ethereum is a religion, because the primary reason that because you think about it, if it were a philosophical basis that you were supporting Ethereum instead of Ethereum Classic at the time of fork, okay, and or supporting both, right? I supported both. I'm like, this is awesome. We have a more purist approach that says, no, the code is the law. It literally still is the law over here, versus an approach that says, a lot of people lost money. Boo-hoo. Oh, by the way, Vitalik, a bunch of my friends lost money.
That's what regulators are for. Did you see him eat bugs?
And there's the thing.
To bow to the regime. Like, that was such bullshit.
Okay, real quick.
I wonder if he had to do that as a condition of keeping it online. Like of them not fighting him on it.
On what? What? I don't know what you're talking about.
He was eating crickets.
He ate. Vitalik posted a crickets thing. Like he ate.
It was like a WEF initiation.
He's eating the bugs.
Okay, well, that's what I'm just saying.
Like,
at the time, the historical, philosophical, and liberty-based approach was Ethereum Classic.
Right, and they still are, honestly.
Right. So,
if I were going to pick an alt for them, like you could probably make a decent case for Hex, though I don't fully understand it, and that's why I haven't really given it any thought as an alt for me. but ETC is not a bad position to hold. There are probably a couple of others that I don't know of that make good, decent alternatives.
Yeah.
But ETC is where I put. Again, not financial advice, but I built a small position in them recently.
Well, and by the way, on the fact of the DAO when it was created, I invested like $400 worth of Ethereum, right? And seeing history, waking up, I think it was a weekend morning, and the first post that had popped up was, holy shit, they're draining funds. And I just smiled because like, that's exciting and crazy because somebody found a hole, and it's not theft. Mm-hmm. It's literally part of the rules.
Right, exactly.
You didn't do anything that wasn't allowed in the code base.
Maybe you should have.
Right. And especially when everyone was the entire organization, the code is the law, the code is the law. And it's like, oh, wait a minute, we lost some money in our friends' life.
And that was used to pretty good effect. That was used against Ethereum in a lot of books, but I remember reading about it in the Bitcoin Standard, where it was arguing that even Ethereum has shown that they're willing to rewrite the chain if they all,
Bitcoin is too. The fucking maximalists in Bitcoin are willing to rewrite anything they want in their entire philosophy as long as it gets a proposed and hopeful number go up. Whereas the people actually manipulating that know that it's a freaking trap.
But the real smart way to think about this, guys.
What's that?
I think there's a real smart way to think about it that we're all not. So we get into the details for fun. But I don't know if anybody really ever gets to see how much we're just like, okay, so this means we sort of have to pay attention to all of it. There's no maximalism to be had in a room full of people who are paying attention to this in the right way, because you will lose if you maxi out on something.
Right. You're missing a big part of the picture.
That's why I was never really mad at altcoins, even as a hardcore Bitcoiner, which we used to be more of than I am today. I was never like upset about altcoins because I looked at them as, if nothing else, it's free R&D for Bitcoin to see what doesn't work, what does work, what fizzles out, what takes off, and what has longevity and what doesn't, that kind of thing. It's like, at least pay attention. You're doing stuff for free to see what happens.
Multiples, even if they don't compete and improve each other, just having different choices.
And I do wish more of the alts weren't just freaking copies of whatever else. It's like, I want to copy this, change some numbers, put it out. Copy this, change some numbers, put it out.
I'm kind of okay with it because, like, maybe they're iterating on the branding for us.
Oh, if they are, well,
if it was the perfect brand.
If they were doing scientific experiments, like say, we're going to change this one variable and see what But then they weren't. They were like changing some stuff, marketing it, selling it, right?
Okay, here's a fun hypothetical. Let's say someone took a piece of open source code like they did with Pancake Swap and said, you know what people really hate? Fucking unicorns. We're just going to switch it to pancakes and keep everything else the same.
Don't change shit with the branding.
An alternative that doesn't involve that bastard animal. Right? They hate unicorns for whatever reason.
You don't think that's happened?
They put it up there and it goes big because people actually don't, on the whole, want that to be the brand that people use all the time. Right? Like,
that literally is what they did.
And it is actually market value, in my opinion. I think being able to fork something and just change the branding is the legitimate reason to do a fork.
Totally. I agree.
Speaking of forks, it does look like some exchanges are already openly supporting whatever ETH-POW, ETH-POS split comes out. BitMEX is, according to Capital.com, whoever they are, has said that they would support a POW ETH token or a fork. So we'll probably see like whenever there was like the block size battles and stuff about Bitcoin Cash and ABC this and
Bitcoin Unlimited,
Bitcoin
Classic.
I don't trust any of this stuff.
And there was like the list of like 5 of them on all the exchanges for 4 or something for a while.
Someone might have to tell us. Maybe Sean could get Bear on or something like that. But I did not understand that all of those separate projects that at the time were looking at how to adjust that size stuff that in the size wars back then, that all of those apparently comprise what is Bitcoin Cash now. I didn't realize that. I'm like,
I didn't realize that for a long time.
By the way, and that's a pure example of what I would have loved to have seen is a competition between those various ways on the same network, and it's in my opinion, pretty brilliant, because if you want to run under strict, you're going to have to adjust to make blocks. You're going to have to adjust your parameters if you want to compete. That
depending on what kind of transactions too, you have to.
Right.
It'll go through whatever nodes support that version of transaction.
The beauty is for things like censorship resistance, that you might get 90% of the nodes that are censoring certain addresses or certain activities, right? That there's a huge opportunity for the guys that don't want to censor to then say, well, okay, you need that transaction.
Guess who gets the fees? The fees go to whoever carries the transaction.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, and you can still, as a submitter, you can say, I'm only going to submit to nodes that follow this rule.
Exactly.
So you can go, I support the idea that there shouldn't be censorship. Right. This guy's getting my money, and I'm adding an extra tip.
See, those
it won't be long till they convert the others.
Yeah, those are the things that projects should be talking about, not the BS that we're seeing. So whatever.
Right. Actually, node endpoint for submission choice should be a feature. Really should be.
Yes, I agree.
End users should be able to pick.
I totally agree. That's awesome. Okay, do you guys want to move on to the theme of the week, the questions?
I'm down.
Good. Okay. All right. So first question. Let's see if I can read this on my small. It's inset screen. Okay, well, I'm just gonna make it bigger. All right. So excuse me looking around the screen, right? From Derox. Question: what are the advantages and disadvantages of transparency? In case someone knows your address, they can trace your every transaction, income, value of assets. It's good for politicians who want to do it, not for themselves, of course. But how can it be good for ordinary citizens?
It's only good if you have not secrecy necessarily, but secrecy by default and the ability to turn it off selectively. That is what we mean when we say privacy, right? Like ultimately it's secrecy that you can selectively break without exposing to everyone. Keep some things from some, other things from others.
That's
and
where the
only for
whole
as long as you want.
Litecoin thing with the MWeb, it's just, I think, brilliant. Where you can use you can use Litecoin for open transactions, so people can see it. When you need to write a check and have the documentation, you can use the main chain. But if you want to give your daughter some money or something, or pay a bill for a medical procedure or something, have a private transaction, you can use MWeb.
I do like that projects are looking at privacy more than they used to. And Litecoin, I found that out from you actually, Lisa, because I hadn't been following Litecoin for so long. I didn't know that they had implemented. It was Mimblewimble, right?
Yeah.
They implemented. Yeah, I remember following Grin for a while, and their implementation of that was super cool. And they all do it different ways. Like Grin, you got to be online. You can't just have a cold wallet to send to. It has to be like hot nodes. I imagine it's the same way with Litecoin.
It is right now. There's some people working on adding it to some wallets. I think it should be easier here soon, hopefully.
And I'll say if we step back on this question and talk about it in terms of just information, that the advantages of transparency are obvious. If you need in certain cases, like say all government operations should be on chain, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That disadvantages are obvious: privacy, and especially,
or it could be a condition of employment. Like let's say you're a truck driver, you could definitely want to see an advantage in knowing who your driver is, at least with respect to the fact they have the right credential, they have a clean driving record. You wouldn't necessarily even have to know their name.
Well, that's true. And it doesn't have to be money.
In operation, like the fact that the supply chain system should have the ability to pinpoint exactly where that truck is if they dangerous items.
The technically all they really need is the driver that started this truck we're paying has a certified commercial driver's license of appropriate class. And they're not, and they haven't been arrested recently.
And yet, I think that, and that's one reason. I mean, Dragon Chain's architecture was one of the key features of it being hybrid, and one of the origin features was the ability to protect the data. So it's selective transparency, which means I want to be able to put everything on chain, like even things that I will never want to or need to expose, in the interest for either liability or history, or me going back and analyzing actions, or whatever else, the ability to provide an independent proof to anyone when I do expose those transactions. So it's a key, amazing, necessary feature. And you think things that humans have never had yet, still to this damn day, is the ability to look back and see what the hell are my elected representatives doing, right?
Right.
What did they actually do? What was this meeting really about that led to some vote, right? Those things for, the Library of Congress alone should be demanding that all of these things are on chain.
Right. Well, and when you think about it as a programmer would, because right now, like, people are hearing us and they're going, that sounds like it would be complicated. But really all we're talking about is everybody should run a function that has a basic pattern of this. You want to access something or do something, then you negotiate with a contract, and the only thing that the gatekeeper asks is, did our check pass? Did it return true when this identity called this function? And that's all they should care about. They don't need to know who they are. They just need to know that the rules are followed.
I mean, it's a RESTful API. It's essentially, it might be ledgered history. It might not be a ledger. Do I need you to process something? I just say,
so you don't need a lot of context for that, I guess, is my point. Like, people can be a lot more private than they are.
Oh yeah. And it's, it can be self-held. It's like it could be encrypted, all whatever else, right?
I heard a really interesting argument for privacy, even to get people who don't care about privacy to start caring about it. And it was the same logic that people were using to tell people why they should wear masks and why they should get a vaccine, even if they're not personally somebody who cares about that, or even if they're not in any danger of whatever. And with the vaccines and the masks, it was always the immunocompromised, right? It was like the herd immunity that protects the vulnerable, because it creates an environment where they're safe. And so this was the same argument applied to privacy, where they were saying, well, even if you don't care about it, we should all have privacy by default, end-to-end encryption on everything that we do, just so that the journalists of the world and the people that need to operate can operate more freely, because it's the people around, even if individuals are choosing privacy and using tools for privacy, the people around them aren't. And so it exposes them.
That's a good
when maybe it
push
shouldn't.
In the right direction, but I think the argument needs to be more like this. We had a scientific consensus on masks being effective at a level that was very, very low, because there was a tiny percentage chance that they could help in some cases, and that case might result in a death. At the time, they didn't take into account like the opposite side of it, the cost. But this is worth it, they said. It's a cost benefit, right? There is a certain degree of that with privacy, but very, very little flexibility in terms of how much privacy people can have or not. It's kind of everybody's private, or nobody is.
Well, and it's weird too, because I mean, that strategy with masks can work because people can, it's like, oh, it goes over my ears, okay. But with privacy, it's notably difficult for technical users to do privacy right in the modern world. You think about for grandma, it's not easy. So the issue is
when accidental disclosures can be undone.
Think about this.
I guess
it would be better for all of my customers if I run Gmail, if I run Hotmail, if I run these other things. It would be radically better for my customers if they had end-to-end encryption and didn't even have to know how to do it. It just worked.
Right.
Guess what? They could damn well have done that 10 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And they know that, and there's a reason that they didn't.
No, Apple threatened to do it if they didn't back off of that FBI claim. That was how that went away. Ultimately, they threatened to go through with an iCloud.
That was all theater anyway, because
it was
the back door. It's already been released. They already had the back door.
Right. It was 2012, right?
Yeah.
Or 2013 when they put that in. Those were from the Snowden release.
I think Apple paid them to come after him for that.
That's it.
I mean, they already had the back door. There was no reason for them to come after Apple for that, and it turned into, it was great marketing for Apple to say, no,
we actually all paid for the
iPhone
FBI
is secure.
to help Apple with their PR there.
Ignore those pictures of those famous actresses doing various things. The iPhone is secure, right? So.
It's funny. I think we're digressing. We should see what the next question is.
Yes.
Well, yeah, and what I wanted to say about the advantages and disadvantages is basically what you guys have kind of said, but I've always had this idea of Bitcoin Monero, this duality of Monero for the people, Bitcoin for the government, or some version of that, right? Where it's an open ledger for the government and a private ledger for everybody else. So I can figure out where my tax dollars are going, for example, and that sort of thing. And they can still audit people with audit keys if it's a requirement, but the default should be privacy.
I think it's within engineering capacity to turn every network into one that has privacy on by default with zero knowledge, sufficient engineering on zero knowledge proofs. Like that needs to be blockchain's next thing. We shut down the kill the earth argument with the proof of stake split on ETH. Like that will not be an argument anymore because they'll go, well, look, ETH did this. They're going to come up with something else and we're going to have to kick it down. But we should definitely start working on the privacy one because that's going to be a big one.
Yeah, I think it's already solved.
The whole tech needs an upgrade.
Cool. All right. The next question is Hyro. Is that right? And let's see here. What is the strangest / coolest way that blockchain can affect the way you live today that you think most people don't talk about?
Cool. That's actually a really great question. I love that question.
Strangest and or coolest.
That's kind of what Ethereum wanted to do, right? Was just take this and apply it to everything in life instead of just money. Well, part of what they want to do.
The contracts, like, no offense, Greg, but getting rid of attorneys.
Oh, you're right. Oh my God, you're right.
And like being able to buy a house without it taking a whole month, and changing title, in more truthful, easy way, and
I think
kinds of things.
I think that it could make
property to be described in a vector. You could tokenize that and have property not just traded but mapped. Like you wouldn't have to have worries about adverse possession cases anymore. For example,
yeah, but those are still like financial transactions that are large. I'm buying a car, I'm buying a house. Happens once.
Like recorder of deeds, rarely. Which one's right is an argument that usually gets pretty heavily litigated.
Yeah, but that's not my daily, like the way you live today. You aren't buying a house today. What did you do? What are you doing today?
What's your day today?
Would be a cool thing to do.
I think parking meters would be cool.
Rather than what we could build.
Okay. City infrastructure, day-to-day life infrastructure in the city. Things that are like a blockchain city built where the systems from the ground up are run on chain with incentives and stuff like that. Like we've talked about, I think maybe even on this show, the idea of having incentivized municipal programs where if you sweep the streets, you get paid out. So then they don't have to hire street sweepers. Or, the same thing with any company that takes a cut from any like municipal system, like parking meters and things like that. You could decentralize to a point where the residents themselves maybe even have a node that comes with their like their utility meter. It's just built in. Everybody gets a node and you get part of the network validation fees instead of that going off to some company that isn't from this town at all. You can keep it local.
You can run an effective big business without an accountant because you can have a multi-sig wallet instead. That's actually pretty amazing.
True. Well, and you think about it, the way
nobody can embezzle.
Distant has mentioned this multiple times that you think of Den as a box in the town center with levers, right?
The town square machine, yeah.
There are reasons that you might pull the levers or not, right? And it essentially rewards people and penalizes them if they do the wrong thing, or so you think about that and take into its logical extreme that the parking meters, it would turn everyone is like, oh, they went over on our parking meter, I can push a button, right? They could do the things that you would normally pay someone to walk around and be a jerk to give people tickets. Now it's like, oh, I can see it's maybe as a citizen I'm not going to go after some of them. And anyway, it's like it's
decentralized
sacks of goodness with it too.
Yeah,
like literally You can say like, for instance, you're walking down the street, somebody does something like hold the door for your family. Like, hey, can I send you? Like, I mean, something weird like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just saw what you did. You saved that dog from getting hit by a car.
Yep.
Can I give you some ETH because that was awesome?
Right.
Yeah.
Can
Since
I
I
give you
wear
some dragon? That was awesome. Like,
everybody starts getting QR
like,
codes.
that's actually a way you can mess with people right now.
Tattooed.
And some of them will take you up on it if they know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, and I've talked about this before too. When we have full self-driving cars, and I don't think this will happen because the way things get developed is so lame. But
not as long as I'm alive.
Literally, you should be able to say, "Look, I can have a casual trip into work today. I'm running early, right? So I'm just going to let people pass me, and they're going to tip me every time they pass me, and they're going to put in a rate and say, look, I damn well have to get there, and so I'm going to pay everyone who moves out of my way, a quarter or whatever else."
Dude,
and
you can put a QR code on your back window and promise to let people in if people will scan that and donate to you.
Yeah.
If you appreciated it.
It's just, it would be a marketplace. And then when you get there, the parking space, the Rockstar parking would be more expensive in the prime hours, right? And the rates would just adjust. That is literally how it should be run. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it would be really efficient, because guess what? You would get to choose, and it would tend to provide better service, because I got lucky, so I got Rockstar parking. It becomes, I need Rockstar parking today, I'm running late or something, versus I don't care, I'll park out here. Whatever.
Or like, my ego can't handle not Rockstar parking year round. So I'm going to go ahead and buy this NFT that reserves it to me. And if I ever feel the need to sell it, or somebody wants more for it, then they can bid on it.
It's better for the parking lots. It's better for the cities. It's just, anyway, so it's all that behavior stuff that can literally be applied to anything. And that's what I will tell you, as for blockchain fundamentals, I think the most important thing that people can think of, and it's a little complex to put it together, but it literally is the fact that blockchain represents and proves that software can control or at least influence people, right? And I say control just as so people understand it, but it literally is just, it's a choice. I don't have to run a Bitcoin node, but if I want to run a Bitcoin node, I can make some money.
Right.
If I want to do the work, if I want to go to the effort, spend some money.
Well, yeah, it's like,
it's very clear and trustworthy. So you don't need to be really certain that this is going to pay you. If it, if you look at it and it does what it says it does, it's kind of obvious.
Right.
And it's also
I don't have to trust a bureaucrat. I don't have to make sure that I file some form that they just added next month. It is literally, if I want to do this, it works. And my whole point in Dragon Chain was to convert that from a solely mining concern, which is beautiful for the advent of that network, to
proof of sweep, proof of drive.
It's to anything that you might, as a business or a project, want to get people to do. And they have to choose to do it. So you have to provide the right rewards, you have to provide the right angle, and you have to make it clear. Then they will typically do it. And we've proven it with Den, and we've proven it in a few other cases too, that it's a very interesting concept.
Something else that I've been thinking about a lot is related to that, which is how we enforce laws. We use all of the tools that your dog trainer tells you not to use with your pet, because that's not the most effective way to teach a pet how to follow the rules. You know what I mean? We use all of those bad things that we've taught, that we understand are not the way to teach an animal. We use that on ourselves exclusively.
We should solve crime by distracting people with good deeds they can do for money.
So it allows these, the positive reinforcement stuff and the
Can I tell you,
stuff like that.
We've experimented, and it's not an easy thing to do, but in Den, we've literally experimented with using the behavior systems to counter IT attacks, traditional ways to attack a system. And so it's totally doable. It could be, and it totally is the same thing. That kind of a philosophy that we've expressed was, look, frankly, if you can make a bot that creates amazing content, then fine. The people who want that content, doesn't matter. Right.
No, I mean, there are bots that I love on Twitter that I absolutely love. Could not live without some of these bots. They do things like repost science articles, but in the tone of voice you might expect from Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh yeah, the comedy, the novelty accounts, they're fantastic. Absolutely.
Yep.
That's a good bot, man. I don't know if it's gone.
So strangest and coolest ways that blockchain can affect the way you live today. It can lower taxes. All the stuff we're talking about is stuff that supposedly is what we pay taxes to fund, right? These government systems that we need to pay for, and the government doesn't have any money, so they have to take the money from the people that work for the money. And then every time there's inefficiencies, we just pay more taxes to cover the gap.
Did you see the video?
Actually, this is a really damn interesting point.
Oh, go ahead. I'll tell you.
Check this out. The tax return process is, in fact, a ledger reconciliation exercise. Is it not?
Yeah,
it is.
What double ledger? It's what double entry bookkeeping used to have to do. That's what banks do, literally.
Validating what you paid against what was reported. Yeah,
they do a tax return a day, basically, and they settle up. But that's how you settle up in a system without blockchains. Yeah. With blockchains, your tax return happens as you run the transaction.
Yeah,
right now it's enforced with kinetic energy instead of how Bitcoin does it with electricity and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And reams of paper and complex filing systems.
Did you guys see the
guns?
But yeah, lowering taxes is a pretty cool effect of blockchain if we decide to use it.
Could be, yeah. Did you guys see the video? I think it was one of the Fed branches, the president. I think it was maybe Minneapolis. I can't remember if there even is one there. But he mentioned about CBDCs and wondering why are we even. I understand why China's looking at this because they want to see every time someone spends that money.
Fed now is supposed to be in full force by May or March of 2023.
He's asking this you can already send
by government contractors, so we can count on some delays in all likelihood.
So, but anyway, it's a very interesting admission or question from him.
So it was a question from a Fed entity about why are we doing this if we can already, if the end user already has this functionality?
Yeah.
What is this adding, and why?
He's
why
calling
do we
it out literally?
Yeah.
The only reason we would be adding it is if we want to trace you and see everything you do and be able to tax you in your account, so on, so on, so on.
So he's calling out literally why don't we design FedCoin to be impossible to corrupt like this?
Maybe. I don't.
That's an interesting angle.
Yeah,
imagine if they actually had transparency enough within their
retweeted
ranks that people. Could,
you can look. I retweeted it and it's on Eternal, so the whole thing's captured. But
I'll go look it up. Yeah.
I refuse to believe that they will be able to build any good technology products at any U.S. government agency.
Well, no, they shouldn't be the one that builds it.
Yeah,
that's not who should be building it.
Yeah,
who should be building it are the people that are currently building it. Use something that right now we've got networks that have been proven for quite a while now.
Yeah,
just use something that exists.
The Now project has been going for some time, right? Like they've got.
I don't know how long it's been going on. Is that the one where they've been? Is this the CBDC push? Have Fed Now?
It's their sort of trial balloon version of it.
Okay,
I did not even know that. Okay.
Oh, Lisa, you and I both knew about it, and I think we were telling those guys about it for the first time.
It's been a while. It's been in the process. I mean, Bitcoin Ben told me about it years ago that they were working on it or getting ready to launch it. But it basically is like a ledger system where all transactions will go through that one point. So
I saw it trending on Twitter this week, and that's the only time I've really seen it.
For benefits to some group or something or other. I forget exactly what they were piloting, but then they're going to expand it to everybody, right? Like you said, by the coming deadline.
Mid-September initially, and then launched between May and July of 23. Okay. So we're a year out.
Yeah.
All right. Next question.
Theoretically.
Jacob Wayne, besides no grow up, what is the most important thing about blockchain technologies? Just kidding. Okay, so what's the most important thing about blockchain technologies, according to you guys?
Truth.
There you go.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that became my big one. It wasn't my big one in the beginning, but it became my big one. Is this the idea of introducing a new environmental variable that we can look at and measure things against.
Yeah.
Like carbon dating something to see how old it is. You can sort of I don't know, what would you call that? You can Bitcoin date it.
Yeah.
Proof, kind of measure the proof somehow.
the actual response, but also a very effective rhetorical response to people who say truth is relative, right? Like, no, we invented capital T truth. Here you go.
Well,
I mean, that's the thing too. It's important to note that the only truth that the blockchain can provide is that this transaction, this data was given to it. It can't by itself weigh in on the reality or truth of that data.
Right.
But you can, on top of that, apply consensus measures, which would let you also on chain get an evaluation from people where reputation and or some other measured value is at stake, right? So that's the main thing, because if you have, and the secondary, by the way, that's kind of the
deductive logic can get you to other capital T truths, though. That's an interesting one.
But the primary is date and time, and this is what the document was. The secondary is that evaluation marketplace, like say in Den, we use a prediction market to do that. It's particularly effective. And then the third, which we talk to enterprises about, is the fact that don't put, and this is why a scalable blockchain is necessary, in my opinion, is because if you don't have a scalable blockchain, particularly economically, that is, if it costs me money to put something on chain and it's a volatile and potentially expensive, I'm going to only put big events on chain, and I'm going to say, oh, all these things happened, and I'm marking this item green, right? That means shit when you're evaluating it, because all of the things that led to the evaluation aren't on chain, so you don't know if they really happened.
Exactly.
So we need to be able to put even mundane data that could mean
especially be
combined. Yes, that's what needs to be on chain, and so you have to have a scalable blockchain, and again, that ends up being about the truth of reality or events. That ideally everything would be on chain.
And that's the big thing to me that kind of broke my mind a little bit whenever I just more and more realize how everything really is not binary or digital. We live in this digital landscape now with computers and everything's a 1 or a 0, but really nothing is like that. Everything is analog. And the idea that truth itself,
low-level switch math, nobody cares about that.
The idea that truth itself, you could measure a range of truthiness, like how relatively true is something. I've always thought of something as true or false, and that's it. It's a Boolean value.
Well, but Booleans are also an artifice, right? They're using a voltimeter to measure the state of the gates.
Right? Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is it's something we've created
using a switch. Like, it's all humanity turning probabilities into
the nature of things is analog
statements.
And truth is an analog value that we've not measured in any way but a Boolean true or false. At least when I was growing up and understanding the world or trying to for the first time.
The more that we can put data into a system that we can chain of custody it all the way, right? To that
just wrapping my head around weighted truth so that you can make decisions. And this is where it gets into national security stuff too, is if you can make measurably factual, like this is 97% chance to be truth, so we can make decisions based on that. And maybe it's SEAL Team 6 who needs data that's reliable, that isn't something that isn't something that's been made and specifically designed to corrupt their data or lead them in a certain direction,
all the way up through strategy, Dave, right? Like a whole chain of command is there to do what essentially a blockchain can do and take you basically straight down to the operational level once you design it. Like, you don't necessarily need a bunch of truth carriers in the middle to relay orders. You need the top and you need the executors. In a blockchain system.
Can I say, and as to because history is essentially what we're talking about, right? And these things happen, right? And that I was once told by a history professor, class, it's like, well, slavery, is now considered wrong, right? Back then it wasn't. So, and he was talking about the fact that back then it wasn't wrong, today it was wrong. It's like, but I don't know that that's true. I mean, attributing wrongness to it, I would say it was always wrong, right? It is always wrong, blah, 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 obviously, but
it was more acceptable.
The truth is what happened and who voted for it and who, Dred Scott and all the rest of these other things that happened, compromises. It's weird And it would be more appropriate to at least have the reality on chain. And, right now it'd be remarkably easy to do with anything passing through Congress, right? It would be extremely easy to put it on chain. But anyway, okay. So
You could have the vote or the outcome on chain. You couldn't. Could you have the whole discussion or someone's heart or mindset?
That's what I'm saying. I think you have to have that.
You'd have to have all of it.
Their communications, and I'm not saying you have to, but I'm saying it would be remarkably more valuable for history to have it there.
To have the whole, yeah.
That's what I was thinking about in a different context. I was thinking about like Star Wars, right? And I think that Kylo Ren's lightsaber is super stupid, and they made up a reason for it later so that it fit canon to make the fans happy because, well, they went and screwed up the lightsaber, so they had to come up with a reason. I think Stephen Colbert may have come up with
Ive actually did that lightsaber, and they wanted to use it, I think, because it was such a cool design, even though they had no reason to use it.
Yeah, like it looks cool, but it's completely like that's not how you do a lightsaber. But anyway, they made up some bullshit about a cracked kyber crystal. No sense. But what would be interesting is if all of the creative assets of that film as it was being created was on chain, so that you could then validate like, oh no, we always meant it to be that way, or some event that happens in a book that you're writing where you can be like, no, that was always a TV show or something, to be like, no, that was always supposed to be what it led to. We didn't just make this up. You couldn't
have that Mandela effect, or what is it called?
Yeah. Well, and I think it'd even be good for the value of the work. That is, Tolkien had a ton, I'm not a big enough fan to have ever read all the other stuff, but he had a whole bunch of stuff, backstory on the languages and all that other stuff. The fact that you could have, and Game of Thrones the same way, you could have a lot of things sealed that after the story's out, I mean, even Harry Potter, that they would interview her and she would offer some tidbit of information that was never directly written about. If that were on chain as backstory, it would be awesome.
That's because she stole the story from someone else.
Oh, really?
Did you?
Yeah.
I've not heard about this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then like, what was the last thing that I had on that? Sorry, I was answering somebody else and forgot about it. But yeah, stuff like that where you can prove that you didn't just make up some shit later. You meant it the whole time.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean,
there's one. It's foundational, so you can look at everything we do in society, and there's a way that it's modified. The way that works, I guess. I think it's a good general way to think about how to find these.
Accountability.
That's another thing that it would help. Accountability, like thinking of J.K. Rowling, stealing the story and all that, patents, tracking things, ownership, authenticating things like that. Like, who did write the story first? Yep. It would be proven on blockchain.
Even beyond that, Lisa, you're so right. This is a really big one, guys. This is a really big one because right now there are a small number of lawyers at firms that own IP that write these rules. And there are so many more ways you can hand on IP, right? Like, what if, would you pay more for a song that came with a right to use it on YouTube? I would, for one. Would you pay more for... Well,
the problem is you'd buy it and then YouTube
would that you were allowed to edit and take credit for the edits of. I could see all of this stuff being things that people would pay for and people could price, and it would allow for a lot more creativity to flourish.
Blockchain to do that, and Ethereum isn't it. And I would even say that the projects that just copied Ethereum's code and relaunched it with lower fees aren't it either, because they're still going to have those fee problems when they get the traffic. That not that they're great as alternatives. Just anyway, okay.
So my two things on that question real quick to end it out, if you don't mind. Accountability is one of the most important things. And just the idea of returning a lot of the value that's being sucked out of communities back into the community itself, right? There's a lot of value that's mined by big corporations that have ways of doing that, usually advertising or something like that. But being able to decentralize systems that people rely on in a way that either private companies or governments or whatever don't reap the rewards of everyone's life, that's a pretty important feature of blockchain technologies. And so that's probably my two big ones.
Here's how I would say it. This is my answer to this, by the way. Sovereignty is what it gives you as a person, right? Like for me, the biggest benefit is now if somebody wants to come and get my thing, they need my permission to take it. No amount of violence can solve math problems. I mean, unless
some amount of violence can get you to solve the math problem for them.
No, I mean, it depends on if you're like me. Like they will literally give me the greatest pleasure on earth to be obstinate no matter what they throw at me. Like I don't care. They're not getting my thing. Enough people do that, and they'll stop trying to get the things that way.
Oh yeah, well, at least it can make it simpler to avoid a lot.
You have the ability to resist coercion with this in a way that you never did before.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what I like about it.
Okay. Next, a question from Juicy J. Question: what are some potential problems or challenges with blockchain as it stands now?
My big one, man, is I keep trying to talk to people that like. The guy that won the seat for my new district, I got redistricted in my city, and guy came knocking on doors, sharp guy, knows about blockchain, cool, awesome, very anti proof of work, so like messaging on how everything doesn't have to be, okay, there's some bad parts of using energy if you do it wrong, if you use it like an asshole, there's some bad stuff, but getting people to understand, one of the problems is that it's hard to understand. And so getting people to understand that there are actually green use cases for proof of work, for example, like how are you going to capture the wasted energy from the power plant downtown? How are you going to capture the wasted energy from the methane produced by your landfill? Like we have these problems that could actually be captured and reinvested or something like that. But because it's so difficult to understand, we're getting sort of like the mob mentality of what's kind of applying to everything in society right now, I guess. This isn't alone.
Do you think that there's a way through this that isn't technological? Like, do you think this is something that has to be solved by a change to the code, or is this something that we have to grow up as people with?
I think that critical thinking and like reading between the lines and things that that are hard, that aren't just cut and dry and black and white, that you can look at and say, that word says this, so that must be what it is, and now that's what I'm going to tell everybody is true.
I was going to say vocabulary, the education or vocabulary is one of the most difficult things for me. Like when I get newbies in, I usually start them with like, hey, just go watch Banking on Bitcoin so that you can hear some of these words in context before you even start trying to watch or have a conversation, because the vocabulary, you're learning a new language, and you're learning these whole new concepts about and they're immediately, their brain is already on money, and like you guys have said, like that's really not what its biggest strength is or what it's about. And so if you can, the vocabulary or the language, I think is a huge impediment or challenge in this.
Well, it's all communications and culture in the end, because here's the thing, nobody can describe in any reasonable detail how the money system works, right? Yet it works, and we have some level of trust. Like, I can take this cash dollar or this piece of plastic and go and buy a loaf of bread, right? So I don't know why you would ever expect or require people to know, how does Bitcoin work? I can't trust it if I don't know how it works, right? It's like, the fact that it is, if you buy something and you need to figure out what happens, you can. Without any external, you don't have to go and talk to someone, a teller at a bank. You can check yourself and see reality, right? That part might be complex, but 99.99% of the time, you'll never need to do that, right? And it becomes, you're right, because if you don't have the semantics, you can't even talk about some of it. But the problem literally is that a lot of people are hyper focused on one to the point where even the legislators think it is only a money thing, It is only a finance thing. So why Joe, are you bitching about us coming after you for software licenses? It's a money thing. It's a banker thing. And it's like,
which is something they made up instead.
They don't
about
understand this is us trying to disrupt their area effectively.
Right.
You and Dragon Chain never said that, as far as I know.
Leave this alone. Blockchain's got it covered. If you need to audit it, it's there.
Yeah. I mean, we literally said, this is a software license. Here's the model. Here's how it's being implemented. Here's why it's implemented that way. Here's the reason for its use, so on, so on, so on. And to the point where we filed a provisional patent. I'm glad we did, because it's on public record, in a granted patent that anyone can go look at when we published that, before we ever even created the contract for Dragon. Right. So it's one of those things that you have to think about. The people need to be a little more open-minded, and frankly, the religion aspect and the maximalism pieces and the tribalism is intentional, and it is what is attacking the technology.
Well, it's not only poison, but the people who are using it know what they're doing. Like the people who are taking advantage of those things and exploiting them and setting your rhetorical landmines to have conversations about those.
Well, and I will say that
distract you from the real issues.
I will say that's exactly it, because Bitcoin is the primary example with green energy. The fact that it popped up and it immediately resulted into much of the energy in the Bitcoin community going into either the communication side, and there's a lot of virtue signaling going on.
They felt the need to debunk the comparison to the country rather than call out the obvious fact that they should have been comparing it to the US dollar.
And even though it's well intentioned, the fact that they have to go and use hydro from a volcano heat and all this other, it's like, okay, that's cool.
It was a waste of resources, honestly. Exactly. It deserves a downturn.
Exactly. And so it's that type of thing that it is so easy to distract the modern West and the East, this tech community, with things like that. All you have to do, they originally, I will tell you, when we first took Bitcoin,
ETH wasn't even supposed to do proof of stake until Apricot.
Disney, we took Bitcoin into a meeting at Disney to request, we want to run a full node so that we can complete our hybrid interoperable network. That's what we did at Disney, right? Mm-hmm. One of the first things that a senior level VP asked was about but we have to be careful, because Bitcoin is used for drugs and money laundering and for what did they say, something about human trafficking.
Then you better empty all the 20s out of your wallet and like painting the Disney Corporation.
Yeah, they accept dollars at the park, don't they?
Yeah, dollars are far more.
They're literally a percentage cocaine because of all the illegal drugs people use off of them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and that's
guilty of drug possession if you're carrying paper money right now.
That's one of the things that bugs me is I don't typically like to go to the what about that, or the whataboutism, that kind of thing.
As called for.
However, when we're talking about something like Bitcoin, and we're talking about something that is meant to replace a corrupt, dirty, inefficient system, and you're saying, oh, you shouldn't use Bitcoin because it uses electricity. And then you turn around and use your Visa and your electric car and your, light bulbs in your house. And okay.
Right.
But
and you shouldn't watch
it's actually less.
Play football because it uses electricity when people turn on the game.
Right.
Right. Are we going to live here, or are we going to just stay alive? Because they're not
the gaming community is chewing through power on GPUs. You can watch it streaming on Twitch all the time.
To play through fantasy worlds that don't even get recorded anywhere final.
Which I think that's worthwhile too. But the thing is you can't smash something that's better than what you're using.
And that's why.
And be taken seriously.
You're making a normative claim about a thing that actually could have value to somebody else in a different way.
And that's exactly it. That is the right answer to this, is liberty. It's I don't give a shit how green Bitcoin is. If it makes my life more free, I'm going to fucking use it. Right. And one could argue that Bitcoin isn't the most liberty focused.
And if you do that to it, all you do is set up a rhetorical position that people take. There are people who went out and bought Bitcoin because they hate environmentalists so much, guaranteed. there are people who are like,
Probably.
I'm going to send this in a wasteful number of tiny transactions, because they under the misconception that the number of transactions you do increases the power consumption.
Yeah,
even though it doesn't.
There's a
That's not
the
the
great
point.
thing is there's a limit.
Trees love carbon.
They're playing a fee.
No, they do. Actually, that's a very good point.
Yep. All right.
Okie doke.
All right. That was good. Okay, so next question is Josh
funny show today,
O,
guys.
who asks, is there a widely used base code for blockchain? Do a lot of projects use it? Take a little here and a little there to build what they want, or am I way off? I'm going to answer real quick. You can fight, because one thing I want to say, Bitcoin obviously was the first fork to Litecoin. I think that they used the fork for Namecoin. I think some others as well. And Ethereum has been massively, just copied and pasted everywhere. And I will say to note that Dragon Chain was written from scratch. So anyway,
right, which is cool, honestly. But the interesting question from a open source fan's standpoint is yes, and yes, and yes, and in multiple languages. Literally, like the Geth team makes this or makes one of the clients on Ethereum that implements the EVM protocol, or the EVM standard for what a client should be able to do. But anybody can write one in any programming language and share it with anybody, and anybody can fork that and change it if they do it open source. There's this huge profusion of ways that you can solve these problems at subtle, low-level points. It can make a big difference in the end. Like one choice can mean this thing costs 15 cents less to run a year, which adds up to a lot if you're scaling it to the globe. So yes, and yes, and yes. There's lots of code out there. There are lots of ways to do it. And you probably, if we could think of one here that we haven't confirmed exists, it probably exists somewhere anyway already.
Yep.
So. Yeah, it's kind of like it's protocols, standards. If your software can accept these types of inputs and create these types of outputs, then it'll work. And the network doesn't need to know what you use to write it, as long as your inputs and outputs are right.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like yesterday I was talking about a system I used to work with in the Navy that was spec'd like that. It was ordered that way. I think it's the only way I could just figure out why they did it this way. But it was one network and one system that had Solaris, HP Unix, Mandrake Linux, and Windows 2000. There were at least those 4 operating systems. They were all in the same local system network for one system, and they all had to just communicate together. And it didn't matter how they worked inside, as long as they worked in the same, on the network in the same way. Yep. And that's kind of like how a lot of the blockchains are literally copy and paste, but some of them are, some of them are forked, and then they back out of, they end up rewriting almost all of the code over time, because they fork it to get a start so they can go ahead and launch, but they know they want more functionality or different functionality, so they change it from there.
And then there are projects that literally dedicate themselves to building good templates for people to spin off variations, right? If you've ever checked out the Tendermint Core project, their whole point is to be a vanilla blockchain that you can take and customize to your needs. Right. And they focus on making that easy, and the community sort of focused on enabling that. Right. Yeah. So that if you want to build a purpose-built one, you can. This is sort of a deeper project in programming, though. It's sort of been the way code has worked for a while. It's the part of the web that still works like the web does, I think.
I have to look into Tendermint some more. I've heard of that before, but I haven't looked into it. It sounds like for some reason it reminds me of this piece of software that I had gotten my hands on when it was 1998, I think. And it was where you could create a computer virus. And it was like, you click through, it's like, do you want your virus to do this, do that? You click, click, what, it was like an early, easy mode, some of the stuff that exists today, like Metasploit or something.
A glowing operation there.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Next, do you have any, Lisa, was Litecoin a fork of Bitcoin? I know that they generally took the same thing and changed the block.
It's a copy that I understand. Not a fork.
He changed the mining algorithm, which is probably my opinion most interesting thing. mining parameters like block timing and stuff like that. Okay.
You would probably know better than I would.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember enough of the history of what I did know.
As I recall, they mostly wanted to highlight when they brought it out the difference in supply and the difference in block time. Like,
I know
it was like faster, a way to do cheaper, faster.
Cheaper and faster.
They had ASIC resistant that script algorithm, right? That was a huge thing to make it more decentralized, apparently, right?
Right.
So, pretty cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Next question is Hyperion frequency, hype freak. And it is, what are some ways we can protect Den.Social from the Web 2 plague known as bot farms? What are the dangers that bot farms may bring to Web 3 tech? And I'm asking as a newbie, if you could give your thoughts on the subject of how dead internet theory could affect the actualization of Web 3, especially in our lifetime. Video for context. What's dead internet theory? Does anyone know?
Well,
dead internet theory. I'm gonna look
how dead internet theory. Okay, I'm really unfamiliar. I'm gonna have to research that. I've never heard of dead internet theory, but the name alone is intriguing enough for me to want to know.
Let me read the internet doesn't exist. It's dead. It stopped existing 5 years ago, according to the dead internet theory. Sometime between 2016 and 2017, probably pretty close to right. The internet, as you know, it was replaced with a fake, a fraud, a simulacra, and all of the people you see posting to social media, they are not real at all.
That's terrifying.
You might not be completely real either.
That is fucking terrifying.
You can check.
This is digital age solipsism, and that
was related to the conversation
philosophical monster that
night.
Created.
Wow. So anyway, the link. I'm going to watch this. It's a 21-minute video. So we should maybe watch that. But either way, I guess as a question, right? That I think we should, if we properly aligned behavior to results, that like bots would not be harmful to them. Right? You might have some that are hitting the IT side, but we could apply various types of behavior tech to affect denial of service. You know, we could affect other rewards that users in the community could do things to help us. Like we've talked about, if we ever, and hopefully we will, have a platform for video that would be embedded, you know, actually in Den, that you would want to reward people for more concise videos. I think generally as a start, that, you know, the shorter the video and the better the response, the more valuable it is, not only because it takes less to store, it costs less, and gets more content out there more quickly, potentially more viral, but because then the users won't get all of the, hi, I'm so-and-so, and I ate it, before they get to the actual content that they came to watch the freaking video for, right? I don't want to see all the BS and watch the ads. I came here to learn about this, right? So the more concise you can make it, the more powerful. And the fact that we had, as part of that, even considered things like, you know, if we literally directly leveraged torrents, that you would essentially earn matter by hosting videos that were the most valuable videos to the community, right? And that would just be a part of the behavior tech. And so you could do the same thing with other issues.
You know, I could see a malicious use of this, though. Like, for example, what do you think would happen to all of Hyperion Frequency and Josh O and all these great people who are sitting here talking to us and have been talking to us since day one? What happened to those guys if somebody decided they wanted to puppeteer us to talk about something using a paid algorithm, to flood us with bots that asked us only questions that steered us the way they wanted us to go? How do we catch that?
There's something I started to say a minute ago, but I was muted because of my fire alarm and I'd forgotten about it. I think that a lot of things like so bots, Joe mentioned it, like if a bot comes in and does bot stuff, if you can build a system to where a bot, to be successful, would have to be engineered in a way that it actually followed the rules of the game and created a benefit for the other people playing the game, then really you've mitigated bots. Like they still exist.
It wouldn't matter.
But if they, but if they have to genuinely
then you
create
wanna check 'em out.
content, or if they have to genuinely vote in the direction that that the consensus, like it has to be smart enough to know, like, oh, this is on topic or this is off topic. That's the task we need done anyway. So like, actually, that's kind of fine by me.
Consider the amount of influence one could buy for oneself if you commanded a bunch of bot voters who had access to governance.
Right, and there's things that you have to identify. You have to have systems that compensate for what you know people are going to do.
And there's the thing. There's
I think no silver bullet here. It's going to be all lead.
It is appropriate ground for AI researchers, because AI research, instead of just, I'm going to put something out there and see what the public thinks on fucking Twitter or something. If you put something out there and try to build a Turing test able AI, let's say, to start posting stuff on Den, there's going to be active competition with real humans. And yes, you might gain some good advantage in the behavior system for governance, but guess what? You're providing a lot of good content to the people who want it. So
even if you have
doing the deal.
If you're designing a bot net, if you have a swarm of bots that you want to take over with all your bots, right? Well, then you have the problem of making it not obviously a bot swarm, right? They have to be. They have to do that already. They have to.
Well, they do it on 4chan and they do it on Reddit and they do it on Twitter and they do it on Facebook.
You can actually use a pretty stock system modularly to design. Like you can have one guy puppeteering a whole bunch of shit.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's the thing. They are right now.
Look different.
Right now, Facebook, Reddit, 4chan, all of the other networks, the standard traditional Web 2.0 networks, have no scarcity. Enforced. So they could post emails. They can throw out trillions of emails. Doesn't cost them a damn bit, right? Except for the hardware. But on Den, there are limits. They can only do so much.
You have to earn a reputation before you can talk a whole bunch.
And this is, and not just Den. The more I look into Odyssey, I'm seeing that there's mechanisms there too for friction to bots, where you have to put something up.
Communities. The communities are going to have to own their communities and watch them, right? Because if you're not paying attention and you're just mindlessly upping everything that you see, and some of it happens to be bots, and the bots are putting out mediocre canned content that's meant to pump somebody's SEO, and that's it.
Beat the bots.
The consequences. Then it's kind of your fault. You let the community go to shit.
And it doesn't. This tech doesn't solve problems in the way that people want them solved. Sometimes it doesn't make bots go away. It makes bots have to pay the community and benefit the community that it's operating on.
If someone makes a bot that everybody finds lovable, and says smart stuff and makes everything better, by all means, give me hundreds of them.
Like, let's say you had to, for example, on Den, let's say we have energy, which, you get for free, and you can post with however much energy you have. You can just keep posting until you run out, and then you got to wait until you get some more. What if it was more like something like Library Coin, where you have one token, where you have to, let's say with Matter, you had to put Matter up, right? Every time you posted. Well, then if a bot wanted to attack the network, they got to go buy a bunch of Matter, or they got to earn it by being a good actor, or both, right? Yeah. Both of those activities are supporting in some way the community that they're supposedly attacking, right? Yeah. So that mitigates current bot.
The other cool thing is you can run it differently depending on your community, right? Like,
it's an arbitrary
experience.
Yeah, well, it's something on that. Before I forget, this may be a little bit off subject, but that's probably a really good idea, Dave, because we could probably make the interface to the boosting system much more direct. That while I'm making a post, I could say, "Oh, sure, I'll put 5 Matter on it because I know it's good content." And then the more people do that, you would end up with sure, if you're a brand new user, you don't have any Matter, you can still get through, but you're going to be competing against people who are putting real value at stake.
You could put up.
I would have a bots only API if I were you guys. That's what I would do. So they have to identify as a bot in order to get access to the tools, and then you can flag them as such if need be.
We have some of that built.
Yeah, we have some.
Where there's an account has a known value if it's a bot, because there are certain their own community layers where they needed bot to feed in external info or something, and for energy reasons.
Exactly. And the bot has an IFF. Like you can say like it has to have this credential or not. You could have entire forums where only bots are allowed to talk.
Yeah.
You know what we could do? One thing we could do is we could just we could extend the smart tags that we have, and we could, for example, we could make it to where if you want to tag your post as original, if you're the author and you want to tag it as original, maybe you got to put up matter to be like, no, this is original, and I'm saying it's original. I'm not lying about this.
That's
and then people, if they come in and find you out, then maybe it does get kicked to a review to where other users can go through and validate, like, okay, that was a lie. This is not.
Does anybody
want like a bounty?
A bounty system, yeah.
That creates like a bounty.
I think this would be neat, guys. I want to build a battle bots forum where it's literally just a layer that only bots are allowed into, and we can have another side layer where people talk about how they build their bot out if they want to.
The next iteration of smart contracts, I think
really
we're looking
cool
at
to know that there were no humans commenting on a subject, just to see how it played out.
That functionality will be there. We'll be able I'll just
all right. I'm going to run a tight ship. We have 4 minutes left, so I think we got through all the questions. There were 6 questions. I have voted 10,946 energy on every single reply under the post, so I'm going to keep doing that. So anybody who has a lot, that's for you. And let's see here. So we're going to close out. So what's going on this week, Lisa?
I'm curious when the next LPC layer creation, LCP, is that it? Yes. I want to create a layer for my happy hour show. And so I want to like put that in, and I think I want to do it where like the community votes it in and makes it organic. I think that's the best way to do it. I
would recommend, if you don't mind me breaking in, I would recommend don't go through LCP.
Oh, okay.
Just come in and create it, because like say Roundtable is a prime example that the people who get the lot and who do the voting and who get to help direct the what happens on the show are literally the ones participating. And that way you don't have people coming in. I'm just going to put some lore in and hold some of this and, sit on it and don't do anything. Right. That's what I would recommend. So, go straight away. Okay.
That's what I did. Yeah. I would, let's link up and talk about that. I'll show you how I did mine and how World Blockchain does theirs. And maybe you can decide if that's what you want to do, or you can go through LCP, which is opening up again soon.
Okay.
Cool.
Dave,
anyway,
what's going on? Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. That's it.
So Dave, this
week. Well, I was just looking over on Den in the governance section. It looks like there's a bunch of stuff to vote on. So I would just say, if you don't have an account on Den, they're free. You can grab one of those and just takes an email address. We're not doing any data harvesting and selling any of your data or any of that stuff. But if you do have an account, go open up the governance panel every now and then, because something that Joe was just talking about, where once you do own part of a layer, you have some responsibility to manage that layer, because if it's not managed very well, then it doesn't do very well and it's not worth much. And at that point, is it? So, keep note on what you voted for and what won every month, because we do create layers every month as a community. They get voted in by the community. And then the people that voted on them, that's who owns it, and that's who makes the decisions, and that's who votes in the governance section, which is the little gavel icon in Den.Social. So that's what I wanted to say. What's going on is governance.
Right on. Perfect. Greg.
There's a lot going on right now. We've got all of the Rivet discounts in full swing. We're about to launch the application process for people who want to sign up and get even more discount. So that's all going on. I think right now is a crucial time for crypto. And I think that everybody who has a stake in the outcome needs to be paying especially careful attention, not to necessarily where all of the bright lights and sirens and horns are going off, because there's going to be a lot of controversy making. The real controversies are not being watched. So look widely and explore ideas and call out things that are happening that you don't think anybody else has noticed, because it's the only way we're going to see it. I suspect that there's going to be a lot of proof of stake buyers in ETH. It's going to bring in institutional money at a node level. And if all the miners were Goldman Sachs people, we'd have the same system. So, Ethereum is going to be a shaky space for a while. And anybody who's not super invested in it, I understand. But if you're super invested in the outcome for all of crypto, it's worth paying attention to and supporting what's right about all of the systems that are similar, right? So at our core, we're all after the same end. So attention to that, and in a constructive way, may not, satisfy anybody's maximalisms or minimalisms, but paying attention to it and supporting sort of the underlying values of all of it is really important right now. That's what I'm calling people to do.
Yep. All right. And for Dragon Chain, we're dealing with regulators and various other things related to that. And, a lot of very interesting projects are still in process, in development. Hopefully some of them are coming out in the coming months, this quarter. There's a lot going on. So make sure to join us again next week, and watch the show again next week. The theme is making the world better with blockchain and decentralized systems. So a lot to talk about there. Make sure you share this episode. The more you share, the more all of the hosts and topic contributors will get. Make sure you like it, comment, subscribe it, retweet it, do all of the things to get the numbers. And have a good week. And keep learning stuff about blockchain. Talk soon. Bye.